Welcome y bienvenidos to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. I am your host for this episode and also one of the teachers at the Educator Aid Incorporated Network. I'm so glad that you're here and you've showed up for yourself today. I also want to welcome spring. It's officially spring. And I don't know what that means for you and where you're located. I have to be careful about this actually too, because meaning we have more listeners globally now at this point than we do in the United States, but I am still mainly based in Chicago area in the United States. So we just started spring here. I know that might be different depending on where you're located in the world. No matter where you're listening from and no matter what season or time of day you find yourself in, I welcome you. I'm officially welcoming you to this episode. All of our episodes are around 15 minutes or less and designed to go deep with reflecting on one very personal question within ourselves. And often the episodes are me modeling that vulnerability and just sharing very transparently about my own journey within these topics. That's all I can really speak to are my own lived experiences and my own context. So, the flow and format you're going to find in this particular episode, we are diving into this question. Ooh, wee. How do I better manage my stress levels? Whew, let me know. Please call in, leave a recording if you have ideas and strategies, because I will take all of them that I can get in my own life. And I want to remind you that as soon as this episode is done, it concludes, you're going to hear a short advertisement. This helps us continue to go and bring you value. And so if you could listen to the short ad, and then you guessed it, I am doing a sneak preview soundbite of our upcoming Featured Voices interview in April with Mr. Blake Nathan. I'm going to call him Mr. 501. You'll hear why I'm saying that in the soundbite preview. So, as soon as this intro is through, you're going to hear our theme song, get cozy, dig in. If you use a journal, whatever you do, maybe you're listening to this with a team of professional colleagues and you're going to discuss it after you listen to it. However you prefer and wherever you're listening from, again, you will hear an ad after the episode, a brief little preview with Blake's incredible interview where he basically gives us an entire masterclass. I learned so much from him, but you'll see why. The other thing I want to point out about the fact that we get to feature Blake Nathan is I get the honor of serving on his foundation's board of directors. Educate Me Foundation. You'll hear more details about that when the episode releases. But until then, enjoy the sneak preview after this episode on how do I better manage my stress levels. Let's hop in. Welcome y bienvenidos to the Cultural Capacity Podcast, an Educator Aid Incorporated sponsored learning tool. I'm your host and guide, Justine Gonzalez, and here on the Cultural Capacity Podcast, we are committed to exploring and supporting individuals and organizations on their journey of self-aware leadership, emotional wellness, and development of effective cross-cultural communications. Be sure that you check out each of the show's episode notes, where every time we're sharing free learning resources and tools, as well as text recommendations, workshops, trainings, and also featured guests in our monthly extended episodes where we feature thought leaders, both existing and emerging, across these realms of topics that we explore together. The design of our episodes, like this one you're about to hear, is where we typically spend around 15 minutes diving deep with one specific question. This is intentional by design, so be sure that you tune in throughout the whole episode. Tap into the show notes to explore and examine both the free and paid resources for you and your teams, the organizations you serve in. And be sure to hit follow, subscribe, or share when you find value and feel led to share with others. I'm so glad that I'm here with you. I'm so glad, most of all, that you showed up for yourself today. Let's dive in together and let's continue to live out our lives in a compassionately curious way that brings out the best in not only ourselves, but in those we interact with every day. All right, so we're hopping in with this question. How do I better manage my stress levels? I have to be honest with you all, and our podcast here for Cultural Capacity, very conversational. And so I have to be honest. The reason why this is at the forefront of my mind is number one, we've been developing some resources for a number of months now that we're getting ready to release. You can check out some of the preview workshops on our YouTube channel. It's YouTube/ at Educator Aid, and it's also linked in our resource links below. Okay, so on that channel, you'll see we've been doing a couple little light mini workshops on just one of our tools here at Educator Aid. And it's really an introspective tool guide. And one of the introspective areas is stress management or stress levels and examining that within ourselves. So this ended up becoming quite personal. The different resources that our team is working on developing for you all right now, it ended up being quite personal because about 2 weeks ago, I had a sore throat for a few days. I knew I was going to be working face to face with clients, so I said, let me go over to Minute Clinic, make sure I don't have strep or COVID, etc. Well, what I found out was my blood pressure was incredibly high, like deadly levels. And one of the things that brought back to the forefront for me was just this power of understanding how our bodies respond to stress. And it might not always be the same, obviously, as our bodies change, as we get older, as we have different hormones at play. Maybe you've had different illnesses. There's so many things actually that really, really impact how your body responds to stress. And then we also have to consider there's elements that could be emotionally stressing. There's things that can put physical stress on your body. For example, if you've worked a hard labor job, right? Sometimes we don't because we're in this cycle of becoming used to it and adapting. That can be beautiful. But then also sometimes we almost kind of, paint over. I always think about it like old apartments where there's just layers and layers of new paint for every time a new tenant moves in, and it's probably super super gross under those I don't know, 40, 50, hundreds of years worth of paint layers. So I think about it in those terms of we often with our bodies, our human experience, any number of stressors happen throughout every day. And if we don't have a way of releasing those and identifying those in the first place, then they just build within our nervous system, within our different bodily systems. And every body holds on to stress differently, right? So I put this out there because it was a great nudge, wake up call reminder to me that even though I'm looking and going, wait, but I've been eating really nutritiously and I've been getting back into jogging, which has been years for me, right? So woohoo, celebration. And I also still had very, very high blood pressure that I'm not doing the best with managing. So, what does that information give me? I will model for you a thought process because it's one I am still working on for myself. And that is, I automatically somehow associate a diagnosis or something like that with, oh, there must be something really wrong with me, or I feel shame about it in a way. And I think that that's common for many of us, right? We feel like, oh, well, oh, okay, I don't want to tell anybody about this, or there's just some form of shame. And the important thing to remember is that the how do we respond to the feedback that our body gives us? And the feedback that it was giving me, I think I went back to this place of placing it alongside me being, when I've had different periods where I've been heavier, or when I have been overweight or felt overweight or didn't feel good. And then associating like I'm feeling really good right now when I go jogging, right? And automatically trying to place some type of label on that. I think it's a lot of how our human brains are wired. And there's a lot of steps that we can take to really identify, why are you even bothering to think and give energy like, oh, you're so bad, you should know this already. You should have been keeping track of your blood pressure. And it helped me see there are still some very negative judgmental thought patterns that I'm holding specifically towards myself. And the reality and acceptance means too, with that statement, that means that I'm also carrying that into maybe how I see other people. So I say that not to bash myself, not to feel bad, and you don't need to either. But when we receive feedback specifically from our bodies, such as elevated blood pressure, these different things that rise up in us, let's not forget that it's not always about cutting things out and going, well, I guess I need to take more naps, or I guess I need to do this. Sometimes it's learning how to work within our body, and identify that, once we start really committing to our own authenticity, our own healing journey, our own self actualization as humans, we have a unique opportunity to go, ooh, okay, I'm feeling more into my body now, meaning I am more able to identify and not just push down like all those layers of paint. Don't just push down those body signals. I think so many of us get used to pushing down our body signals, and we're not responding to that feedback our body is giving us. But thank God, like in my in my former years, there's no way I would have gone to a doctor to even figure out about my sore throat, because it wasn't that bad of a sore throat, right? And in my mind I think, oh well, but the reality is I have to sit with the fact that I did that to protect other people, right? I was thinking about, well, I don't want to expose people if I have strep or COVID. There's still something that I want to work on with my thinking of that, because it should have been okay for me to say, well, this is, you need to check on your health for you. Your sore throat isn't going away after a few days. So a lot of things coming up for me with identifying some self-worth wounds and how those still keep showing, or rather rearing their ugly head sometimes. And also, what are the things then that I can control to better manage my own stress levels? So that's one very, very microcosm example. I encourage you to click on the links in the resources. One of the ways that I found really helps me better manage my stress and not get into a state of anxiety or overwhelm is to learn how to prioritize a little better, manage my time and energy a bit better. And that's a learning process as well. It's greatly improved over the years. And I still have to work at this and consistently have those reminders of, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What am I feeling in my body? How am I making sure that I don't create unnecessary anxiety just because I'm not prioritizing, or et cetera, et cetera. So you take yourself through this process of truly identifying, what are my stressors? And again, linked in we have our YouTube linked below. There's a couple videos on that with one of our tools. We have a lot more that is going to be coming with just that whole concept of, you know, if you're sitting there thinking, for example, you are running around, you're running around on a hamster wheel, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but you feel like you're constantly running, and you're running around and you're trying to get so many things done, and you're just always busy, but you don't have time to just be. Um, that that can really, really, once you start to sit with that and you ask yourself why, that can really inform how you identify your own stress triggers to better manage them. Because if we haven't identified something, we can't manage it. So we have to first be honest about first identifying because I do think a lot of this reducing your stress has to do with reclaiming your power and your own liberation process, so to speak. So, some of the things that are future tools that we have coming out, and why you'll want to visit educatoraid.com or subscribe to our YouTube channel, or both, and continue subscribing and or sharing this podcast, is how to recognize when you're feeling overwhelmed. Again, here's some of the other things that our tools and our free resources will be addressing: strategies to reduce stress, how you can better create healthy boundaries, how to be present in the moment, the power of infusing self-care into your daily practices. We just encourage you to take a first step for you today, and that you deserve. This is something I want to say to you. If you're listening now and you're like, oh my goodness, get out of my head, Justine, you deserve to feel empowered. And you also, you deserve to feel in control of your life, and that there's not somebody looking over your shoulder who's seeing how many hours you're working, who's judging you for something in your life or how you're managing your time, etc. You deserve to feel empowered and in control of your own life. So we thank you for stopping by. I thank you for showing up for yourself, most of all. And I want to also continue to encourage us all to get compassionately curious together. Until next time, take care. Stay tuned. You're going to hear a quick ad and then our sneak peek drop at our next featured voices interview with the Blake Nathan, founder of Educate Me Foundation, as well as 501 Execs. He is doing some incredible work, and I'm so excited to showcase not only his talents, but also just his incredible story. Yeah, he's a survivor in multiple ways, more than one. So please tune into the preview after the short ad. And until next time, take care. I like this.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I see where he's going with this. But I did immediately go, is this also a play off of, you know how, I don't even remember the area code, so I'm going to butcher it, in Miami with Pitbull.
305?
He's Mr. 305.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when I saw it, my first cultural reference was like, like Mr. 501.
Yeah, and I thought about doing that, but I think too, like the issue, like you said, I didn't want to confuse people. Like, what does 501 stands for? But the brand, the company name is 501 Execs LLC, and I mean, and anybody who works with me, they will understand what 501 is. But yeah, I mean, I did it. It was intentional around that because, like, I want to help nonprofit execs, right? And nonprofit will potentially be a 501 organization, C4, C3, C5, 6, 7, 8.
See, I didn't know there was all those types.
So yeah, I didn't want to call it 501c3 exec. So there's a reason behind the brand name. So like, yeah, there's multiple nonprofit organization classifications for tax exemption status. So like there's, you know, you got your fraternity sororities is a different class, your political organizing organizations are another class. Your charity organizations is another class. So just people understand too what that is. But
thank you so much for showing up for yourself today, and also tuning in to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. We couldn't do this show without the help and support of listeners and viewers in 2023, when we will add our extended episodes to our YouTube channel. So please search Educator Aid on YouTube and subscribe now. We are in the process of officially launching that channel. Haven't been utilizing it for a number of years, and we're excited. We're excited to have you join in on these powerful conversations where we are going to be having some extended episodes, and you get to sit down and tune in and learn from some incredible thought leaders. So again, thank you for your commitment to yourself and your own personal learning as well as professional development journey. I thank you for being here, and let's continue to get compassionately curious together. Take care.